All right, Karen, continuing out of our last couple conversations, followed up by some research I've done of late, I want to talk about the placebo and the nocebo effect. We talked a lot about expectations. We talked about our ego, our pride, our control getting in when we're not facing reality or not facing truth. And I see it so often with my students about if they believe they can get an A, they'll go after an A. If they believe they're going to fail, they're going to fail. And
Mm-hmm.
psychology calls that the behavioral display. That's, I think, is a great phrase, right? The behavioral display. What are you displaying that depicts or manifests what you actually believe or feel or do? And we're going to move this around a little bit and then get it into
Okay.
relationships because it's so specific, especially with romantic partnerships. But I was researching placebo again, just to kind of check out some of the details. 1799 was like the first time it was
Oh.
actually processed in a journal
Mm-hmm.
about a guy that discovered it. It's a German dude, I think. And he just talked about, man, this seems to be an impact especially if it's linked with an actual pill or an actual
Right.
process or a maneuver. So it's not just positive thinking. It's fullness.
Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karen Anderson Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliot Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
and biblical truth
to help us thrive in love and life.
Because you're much better at research, why don't you explain what a placebo effect is first? Any of our listeners don't know.
So a placebo effect is, like you said, it's typically used in research where a clinical trial, for example, of a new drug. So they'll have half of the participants will get a sugar pill. So they'll take a pill every day thinking it is the new drug,
Yeah.
and they will basically be getting nothing in their system except for a couple like minuscule milligrams of sugar, which should do nothing physiologically to them. The other group is going to get the drug. And then at the end of the study, they see if people have the effect. So, for example, because we're in psychology, psychotropics, as one group gets the SSRI, the antidepressant, the other group gets a sugar pill. At the end of the trial, they want to show that ideally you want to see that the people who got the placebo, right? So the non-active pill, the sugar pill, that they in fact would not feel any better, and that it would show that the SSRI was so effective because the people who were depressed, who took the SSRI, are now feeling so much better. But what happens time and time again is because the placebo effect is essentially the fact that if you think you're getting an antidepressant and you've been on depressed and you're like, I'm getting an antidepressant now, you're not, physiologically, you are not activating anything different in your biology whatsoever, but you think you are. And the power of the mind is so powerful that you, in fact, start singing Yippity Doo Dah, and you are also feeling better. But so there's nothing to explain it in terms of any chemical change from the quote unquote medication you thought you were taking. The only thing that has changed is that you believe that you should be feeling better because you think you're taking the medication. That has happened time and time and time again. Can I tell you one thing?
Yeah, of course.
Briefly?
Keep going. Keep going.
I don't know how they got approval to do this study, but there is a study that was done. Half of the patients needed a new knee, and they got a new knee. Another half, they went in, they cut them up. They did not do anything to their knee
That's
at
amazing.
all.
Yeah.
At all. But they thought they were under anesthesia. They get out they go to the physical therapy. They've got the scar and everything. No new knees, no new parts. And they're also running around town like, woohoo, got my new knee replacement. Feel great. That's how powerful, how powerful the mind is.
So I researched the word because I never knew what placebo meant.
Yeah.
And if people would understand our family, especially with my father and my brother, etymology is a big deal. The study of words, right? So always they were saying, what's that word mean? And that, back in those days, we didn't have phones. So literally dad and mom were researching, or Warren was researching. I'm absorbing. You're probably enthralled.
Someone either dad gave Warren or Warren gave dad one time at Christmas a book that was essentially the etymology of words or phrases.
All words, probably, yeah.
Yeah, like where we get that.
Like that thick.
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Or any kind of these idioms and things. Yeah. And that's the kind of gift that was getting given at Anderson Christmas.
And so in that spirit, I'm like, what the heck's that word mean? And it means in Latin, I shall please. I'm like, now that's fascinating. I shall please. You took Latin, so did I. I failed it, but you
Right.
took it and probably
But
actually
I'm
learned
thinking
a
the
little something.
French, s'il vous
Yeah.
plaît, is if
Oh,
you
there we go.
please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plaisir.
So I
your
shall
pleasure.
please. And in the research, and then I went on Harvard sites. I love going on Harvard sites. We can say about their liberal scenarios, but I love going on their sites. There's some brilliant people
Enjoy.
there. Yeah. So I was on there and reading through stuff, and they're talking about it as they've broken down. Like the placebo effect is so real. It is 1000% accepted in medical, psychological, biological, anthropological, all the research. So this isn't just Karen and Elliot saying, hey, we think this is kind of a cool psychology thing. No, it's totally universally accepted. And now with all the fancy CAT scans and MRIs, Karen, the exact same amount of endorphin and dopamine release happens in both, which goes back to what you're saying about they had fake knee surgery and their knee was better.
Right.
Now, Harvard was very careful. I read this super lengthy research paper, recent one, like 2025. They were super careful to say placebo doesn't cure, right? You can't, if you have a torn ACL, and you've had one, you can't just say, okay, it's not really real. You know, you're all swollen and everything else. You can't just you can't make your ACL heal back together. But your perception of pain and suffering in particular can be grandiosely, making up my own word, changed. And you can almost like opt out of pain. They've done detailed research with cancer patients about their perception expectation of how they can handle the terrible, terrible chemo, radiation, whatever. And if they link it, here's the part that's so fascinating, and it fits back to the wellness things you and I have been talking about a lot. If you link it with some actual movement process or ritualistic behavior, your chance of placebo working is like off the charts, like 95%, something crazy. So that's why these fake pills sometimes make a difference, because you have to drive to the place. You got the white lab coats working on you, and you're all part of this research. So for those of us who say something like the gym, right? The placebo effect of believing the gym is good for you and getting up every morning like I do and getting there, whether it's 5:30 like I want or like today 7:30, which annoyed me, but I got there. I believe that's so healthy for me. So my body's anticipating, expecting it. I didn't get as long of one today as I wanted, but the effects of it are going to be the same. And they say you really got to link it to ritualistic, that's their words, not mine. I would call habitual. But they said ritualistic behaviors, that's why they call it the behavior display, therefore changes your neurology and your hormone movements, even though if I was coming off an ACL surgery, I couldn't just start sprinting the track because I believed my body was okay. And so it's all really cool, the power of this, and it fits so many scripture passages again. And one of the things they talked about the most is mood. Placebo effect can greatly impact mood. Get happy. Our dad said, who grew up poor.
Where'd you hear that?
Grew up poor and abused, right? And refusing to allow that backstory to define him, right? And to just say, I'm going to be happy now. And to be honest about our father, so people don't think he's like the best man in the history of the world. He's up there, but not necessarily the best man in the history of the world, right? He wasn't always happy, happy, happy. I'm actually way more joyful in personality than the dad was. He was an intellectual who was introverted. So, but man, could he turn it on in crowds. You could just see him, whoop, he just turned it on. The charm and the smile and the laughing and the touch.
He was insanely charismatic.
Yeah, and so people are like drawn, right?
Drawn to him.
And I used to wonder, honestly, as a young little psychologist, long before I was even a good student, I know I was analyzing, observing all the time. I could define power in a millisecond. I knew which teacher I had to behave for, which one I didn't.
Yeah.
Which coach I had to work. You know, I figured that stuff out so fast. And I used to wonder, is he manipulating people? Because I'm really good at manipulating people as a young guy. I was like, is he manipulating? And I'm like, no, I don't think he's actually manipulating. He's actually manipulating himself. He was creating behavioral display to socially make impact and inspiration, especially for his students. He loved seeing them grow and mold. And so he would turn that on. And those people would feel like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest professor in history. He still knows my name. He still remembers me 20 years later at Wendy's. Right. And so that's that behavioral display. And so back to this Harvard research, again, the number one behavioral display to change mood is to smile. There's been so much documented research, just smile. Smile at the Dunkin' Donuts lady in the drive-thru. Smile at Jewel when you're getting groceries. Smile at the dog groomer. Smile at the students. Smile at your spouse, your kid. Just smile. Just the raising, we're on the video here, just the raising of the cheeks and everything stimulates different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
And automatically makes you feel better. It works. We're not talking hocus pocus. Right? This is real. And again, the Harvard summary, I love when these huge research papers with brilliant people, and you know me, it was like 48 pages. I got to like 25 and I started skimming. But for me, that was pretty good. I read 25.
I was going to say, for you, that's very impressive.
It was I got through that much. But when they got to the end, basically the summary, Karen, you mentioned this maybe 8 minutes ago. The key is incredible self-awareness between your brain and your body. And I teach my trauma kids in my trauma class, trauma students, they're not kids. Well, they are kids, but you know what I mean. One of my mantras throughout the entire class, as we're learning, sometimes profoundly learning for kids who've never studied it before, or they're hearing pretty intense things and they have to get out of the room for a while. I always tell them up front at the beginning of class, this is going to trigger many of you. It's going to poke you because we're going to go deep. So they'll get up and leave for a minute, have a cry, get some water, come back. So we talk through all that. And I tell them, this is research, not just Elliot. You're either going to train your brain or your brain's going to train you.
I like that.
And that feels like an seems like an existentialism. I feel like I want to market, put it on a t-shirt. Love and life. Train your brain or your brain's going to train you. And so in this context, the Harvard guys were basically saying that. And there could have been gals in there. I didn't read all the names. They're basically saying that. Have the behavioral displays that you want to be you, and that you want to be your family, and you want to have your marriage, and you want to have your work and your business and your corporation. And I think about you and I and Warren, the products of our parents who are excellent teachers in their own right. Right? When I get into the class mode and get up there and start going, I'm confident, I'm energetic, I'm smiling, I'm laughing, I'm taking command of the room. Not in an arrogant, egotistical way, as a leader, as a teacher. And you and I have talked about this before lots of times. I can't teach all monotone and just sitting down or, right, standing still. Remember, you were in my class, like my very first professor experience ever. You were a student. And I remember afterwards, you're like, Ellie, that was pretty good, but you never stopped moving.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you're like, I'm dizzy. You pace back and forth for 2 hours straight. And so it was good. You gave me good feedback. I'm like, oh, all right. I recognize I need to move.
But I probably would have liked that more than someone that was.
Well, you probably liked it okay, but there was probably others maybe who were like, whew, I'm tired just watching. But you get my point on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so that placebo effect then that we know is researched 1000%, putting that into the context of our life individually, the habits we've talked about. Urban Meyer, the football coach who's been under fire for many things, but led Ohio State to a championship. So of course I'm a fan. He says, another quote I use in my classes all the time, if you're not fulfilling your life the way you want to be fulfilled, either change your habits or change your goals. It's the same thing. And the placebo effect in this Harvard research would say, if you don't like where you are, if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't feel you're reaching your limit or whatever the scenarios are, simply put the behavioral display on, put the habits and the rituals into process, and believe and expect things to move the right direction. And they will, a majority of times, start to move that direction. It doesn't mean you get your promotion automatically, right? It doesn't mean you all of a sudden, you're a babe magnet and you haven't had a date in 6 years. We're not talking about things that are outside your control or things about you can control. All of a sudden, you're going to feel confident. All of a sudden, you're going to feel strong. All of a sudden, you're going to feel appreciated and affirmed in your work because now you're smiling more. Now you're talking to people more. Now you're not in your head. You're in your present manifestation of life.
So many things. I have another study that talks about how powerful this is. And I think we've talked about it before, but I'll just do a quick breakdown of it. 3 different groups in this study. One group was told they were going to have this protein like smoothie shake. One group was told that it was high calorie, but high protein. So, but it's worth it because you're gonna get all this protein, but you're gonna have to watch it because it's very highly caloric. Second group was told, hey, it's kind of an even balance of protein and calories, not that much. Third group was told it's actually very, very low calorie. So you're getting a huge amount of protein, but very few calories. They rigged these people up to watch what their bodies did physiologically when they consumed this. And the body responded whatever they thought they were drinking. So the body, the bodies, the people, the bodies, the human beings that were in this study, their bodies responded. The group that was told, hey, that's really highly caloric, the body was doing all the insulin and all the things that I don't know on a physiological level to deal with. We're getting a high calorie load coming in right now. It was the exact same smoothie.
That's amazing.
And then the other group that was like, there's hardly any calories, but it's like, cool, no, don't worry about the insulin. We got this so it's so profound. So this gets me back to, I know I'm a one-trick pony, but this is why I hate the DSM.
Yeah.
I hate it. And I know everyone knows us now and they know why I hate it, but it speaks to this. Because the minute you tell me I have my entire brain, my entire physiology now, based on the research we've talked about over the last few minutes, is now going to be like, you have this. And now every cell in my body is going to go, oh, we have this. Okay, then let's behave as if we have this.
Yeah,
I mean,
and let's go
terrifying.
to part 2 of this. Part 2 is the nocebo effect.
Okay, bring it.
Nocebo, which I didn't know much about. I've never used that. It's kind of like stress versus
I'm less familiar. Yeah, I'm less familiar with this.
EUSTRESS
I've heard
means
of it,
positive stress.
Okay.
Right, and so there's placebo and nocebo. And I'm just going to read my notes because, like you, I'm not super familiar with them. I'm going to read my notes from the Harvard article. It talks about the negative expectation leads to the negative outcomes and even the reduction in the hormones and the reductions in the natural mood stimulators, mind, body, heart, spirit, simply because you believe it doesn't work. And right, so our students, Karen, you and I both have many students in our history of teaching, college students. And you're like, this student is easily capable of getting an A, but they don't believe it. And they won't put in the work and they're not kind of checking into the learning. They're more worried about the grade or eligibility or something. And it's that kind of thing. They have a nocebo effect. They almost expect not to learn, expect not to grow, expect not to be profoundly inspired or changed by life or living or even faith. Right? Think of how this implies to faith. Faith in the Lord, right? We can't see, we can't touch, we can feel, right? So faith is that expectation that God is going to care, God is going to take care of us, God is going to provide, God is going to do all those things. And right. And if we expect it and believe it, not only are we feeling the neurological confidence in that, we will live that confidence out. And so go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so example of this would be like, we have a group that's getting aspirin, but they don't believe it. They're like, you're getting the sugar pill. So in their head, they're actually getting a pain relief.
Yeah.
Physiologically, but because they think it's not going to work, their pain will not be alleviated, is what you're saying. That would be an example of nocebo. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Just want to clarify. Go ahead.
Like if MMA fighter or boxer sat and recognized each individual pain from a match. I mean, some of the dudes and women hitting on each other, they're so strong and ferocious. Right. So in a way, they are having a shutdown of their pain receptors for that entire experience. And their body trains their brain to do that. And that's essentially what those researchers were saying. You're going through some suffering. You got a surgery coming up. You got these other things. You got to basically tell your brain to tell your body, we're going to go through this with minimal pain. There's going to be pain, but we are going to actually process through this very quickly. You're training your brain how to respond to your body. And when you link those in really, really carefully, and then through regular habitual behaviors, your body will follow to what things are conditionally available to it.
So Gen X kids who would be like out at practice after school for soccer or basketball or whatever and twist an ankle, and we were told, shake it off, Anderson. That was actually good advice. But we weren't
as long as it wasn't a broken ankle.
Validating their pain.
Yeah.
We weren't validating their pain. We weren't empathic. I mean, this is where the tension lies for me. And we can go generational or not. That's not really the point. The point is, do we sit there and put every grievance or every painful moment under a microscope and then look at it and massage it and ruminate over it? Because we have to process it. We have to fully experience it. Every emotion has to be validated. Or do we shake it off, walk it off, take a lap?
Recognize, accept, change. Remember when we were using the rack analogies? And so let's take it into the addiction world now and take it into partnership, romantic relationship world. One of the biggest hindrances to growth from addiction to freedom, or from marital crisis to positive marriage, or from dating crisis to positive relationship, is this placebo effect or the nocebo effect, is our expectation, is our belief. And Karen, one of the biggest misnomers in these areas, and you and I have talked about this personally, not only on the air in our classes, is assuming that suffering and pain is bad for us. And yet, if a couple, in my opinion, doing this now for 35 years, if a marriage doesn't go through some crisis, it'll never become transformational. And a lot of couples they avoid all of it.
Right.
And like I told a couple weeks ago, they won't actually talk about what you and I might consider minute little issues, let alone the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impossible to grow and it's impossible to heal and change without unearthing these issues that are foundationally blocking the whole systemic. And same with addiction. You got to almost, and I don't even say almost, you have to perceive your addiction as a gift, not a curse. And it doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to celebrate my cocaine addiction now to the point I kill myself, but rather, no, it's a gift now to recognize it, understand it, and make the adjustments necessary ritualistically, habitually, and believe and expect. I know how to be dependent on cocaine. Now I know how to be dependent on God. And I'm going to be dependent on others, the body of Christ, the small group, the AA group, in order to truly live authentic, free, present, strong.
So it's a frame. How are we going to frame it? Are we going to frame it as my Achilles heel, my tragic flaw, or am I going to frame it as a gift that's going to help me grow in ways I probably didn't want to grow? But we're all going to have a valley. We don't get to choose our valley. We just walk it.
Yeah.
Psalm 23.
And sometimes some people, for whatever reason, Karen, we don't know, have a lot more valleys than others.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Why.
It's just a reality. And at times, as I'm speaking to every single person on earth, since I'm speaking in grandiose matters,
Great.
at times I want us to go through valleys. And if we have a bunch of them in a row, I see that as a tribute and an honor from the Lord, that he trusts us to walk through those, dependent on him and others, to keep coming out on the other side, but some people don't, right? Some people suffer for their entire life. And Jesus says, okay, you're going to be more like me.
Consider it pure joy. What's the verse?
Brethren, yeah, James.
Yeah.
When you face various trials and tribulations of all kinds.
Or I was listening to Moody the other day and Johnny's on there. I mean, talk about suffering.
Absolutely.
16 years old, you're swimming and you dive in and you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then God's like, guess what? Not only are you going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, you're going to be a leader for all those other folks who are in wheelchairs. And you're going to show them how to have joy. And you're going to be an artist and you're going to get married and you're going to have this incredible life. But who are we kidding? Who wants that? Who wants that suffering? No one wants it.
And no one should desire it, necessarily ask for it. But I think if you ask for spiritual suffering to grow in the Lord, that could be a nice prayer. Just be careful.
Oh, I never asked for that.
Be careful what you ask for, right?
I've told you this. That one song, it was a praise song. I remember, gosh, it was way back. I was like at Willow Creek one time, and it's like, Lord, break me. I'm like, oh no.
Mold me, shape me.
I'm like, nope. I was like, no, God, I'm not asking for being broken. I'm just not.
Yeah. But that state of brokenness again is an appropriate spiritual condition recognition, broken but in victory, broken but in freedom, right? Sin is a nature. It's our sin nature. So a level of brokenness should be a part of our recognition and humility without being defined by it, right? That determination thing's so big to you and I, not identifying something. Yes, we're sinners, but if we identify in our sin, we're focused on the sin, not on the victory and the grace and the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So recognize the sin, focus on the victory. Recognize the addiction, focus on the freedom. Recognize the struggle in our marriage, but focus on the belief and joy that's going to make us stronger. And exude that in your behavioral display, right? You're not getting enough touches from your spouse, touch them more. Exhibit and manifest and present what you need as well, and give it to someone, even in this kind of partnership that's covenantal, even if they're not giving it back. Now, in a pre-covenantal state, in a dating experience, if you're not consistently receiving what is appropriate reciprocal communication, touch, commitment, follow through, care, attention, attunement, sometimes in the name of Jesus, we can get stuck trying to save that person or accept and accept and accept, and then we're going to get mistreated, right? That's a whole different ballgame there.
It is. And I think people sometimes get confused in dating. They think, well, I committed and I have to stick through the bad times. Yeah. But dating is also gathering information. And if you are going through a rough time and you are not feeling that your dating partner is moving through that rough time in a way that makes sense for you and is also because when you're going through a rough time, you lean on each other
Mhm.
without becoming codependent, but you
Yep.
lean on each other. And if you're finding that the way that that person is responding to that rough time and it's not in line with the way that you think you should be going through rough times as a couple, then that's information that you need to gather
Yeah.
and factor into your decision because dating is not marriage.
That's
Dating
right. There's a
is a
big
trial
difference.
period to see if you because once you do commit, then if the person you're in partnership with, now your spouse, goes through something, that's why we want to date for a while so we can see this person in multiple contexts.
Mhm.
First couple months isn't going to cut it because we haven't seen them at their darkest hour. We haven't seen
Yeah.
them in the most painful times. We need to see them in all those different contexts because at that point, once you're married, then it's like, oh, I don't think we
Yeah.
handle stress the same. I don't think we handle pain the same.
Conflict the
And
same. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And then it's a whole
so,
different scenario of what you gotta do to kinda stay in it. Then it's premarital.
right.
And Karen, if you ask me, since I'm speaking to the world, if you ask me as an experienced marriage therapist, pre-marriage therapist, and crisis marriage therapist, 35 years of experience, what's one of the biggest mistakes young couples make, especially Christian couples, because they're viewing it appropriately under the lens of God and sovereignty and maybe even God ordained me with this person, especially if they get sexually committed early. They've
Hmm.
created a physiological spiritual bond of permanence, and now they're not so sure and they're afraid to walk through that. So, what's the biggest mistake? Assuming your love will change somebody or that they're going to become something they haven't already shown. And that's a difficult dance. So, that's why you have to always stay in the present. What does the evidence and the communication and the relationship in its entirety so far look like? Is it what I want it to be, need it to be, would love it to be? Am I getting the proper return, the proper reciprocation, right? And
Right.
we have to make honest declarations of the present, not speculation towards the future. Though, of course, we've just talked about placebo. What do we expect? What we believe? Those are important. But what's the evidence show? He's mistreating me. He has for 6 months, but he's got such a good heart. No,
Right.
get
Right.
out. Get out.
Right.
Right? She's kind and sweet. She's been through a hard time. I love her, so I'll stick
Mm-mm.
around. No,
Right.
get out. And that sounds harsh, but you and I are speaking from a lot of experience, in many, many years in clinical to know the pain and the suffering. And I'd say, Karen, 70% of all the crisis marriages I work with, the issue started premaritally.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
They're
my
not like
theory.
sudden explosions year 11.
My theory is that a lot of people who are struggling in crisis, they should never gotten married in the first place. But that's just my
Right.
theory. I'm
No,
maybe a little
and
bit more pessimistic on that. As one who called off an engagement, I'm like,
no,
probably
but
should have called it off.
many people, when I go to the individual states, right? Because sometimes if it's a complex problem, I'm going to break it down, initially meet together. Then I'll start doing individual work, sometimes with just the wife, sometimes just with the husband. If I see one particular area that's kind of blocking the next movement, I'm not letting husband or wife, other one off the hook. I'm going with what the strongest perceived hindrance need is and going to identify and work on that. And many times, Karen, this won't shock you at all. They say something like that is so good to get off their heart. I'm not sure I should have married him or her in the first place.
Hmm.
I question how this whole thing started. And even if they're strong believers in the Lord, that's so important to confess. Right. And I don't try to
Yeah.
denounce it or go, hey, don't say that. They need to get off their heart. Now, if their goal is to reconcile and restore, I'm not going to let them say that over and over and over again. Because now you're just telling yourself, ooh, I should never been in it. Why be in it now? Right. You're going to set up
Hmm.
the nocebo effect of your marriage.
Right.
But they need to get off their heart first. Right. Sometimes, like, we just got to say, hey, that day just kicked my butt. Tomorrow's a new day, new mercies every morning. Right. And so, as someone who lived under the negative nocebo effect of ADHD hyperness when we were young, to be able to switch that and go, no, this is going to be my superpower. But to know when I have disrupted sleep, like I did last night, because I talked to my son, he woke his brother up to come wake me up. And then, me, once I'm up for a little bit, that juice is flying. I couldn't get back to
Hmm.
sleep till 2 a.m. So I
Hmm.
know now the rest of today, I have to be extra disciplined in my habitual movements of structure, order, routine. I make the adjustments to stay within the power of my gift, not the negativity of my gift. Same thing is true in marriage, right? Some days are horrific as couples. And if we say, this is what every day is going to look like the rest of the, you're in trouble. You just can't sit there and go, oh, this is it. We'll never have good love again. No, you won't. Not if you believe that and expect that and behave that way, because you're going to display it behaviorally.
So it's a little bit of fake it till you make it.
A little
It's,
bit without, I hate the word fake, but I know what you mean.
But it's
Create
just
it.
like,
Can we say create it till you make it?
sure. But like
Thank
you
you.
said, if you're not in the right mood for a smile, make yourself smile anyway, because it is going to set off endorphins in your head. Even though your head's like, I'm depressed, I'm not happy right now. You smile, your body can't help but respond, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
Dr.
it's
Dave
kind-
McKay. Yeah. I got to sprinkle this in
Go
before I
ahead,
forget, and then
go
you can
ahead.
finish your thought. Dr. Dave McKay, my favorite seminary professor for counseling, said, we're teaching you manipulation skills, positive manipulation, but you need to
Right.
manipulate yourself, not your client.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. So go ahead, finish your thought. I was just saying about self-manipulation, not. So you're saying, I don't feel great, but I'm going to smile. I'm going to go get my
Right.
workout. So that's not
I don't
faking
know.
it to me. That's creating it.
Well, yeah, and manipulation, I think, is a strong word too. You going back to Dad, like Dad did he manipulate some of these quiet women who never thought they could sing? Get in the choir, you have a voice, and all of a sudden they're singing, and now they believe that they can have a voice that they never thought they had before because he encouraged them.
Positive coercion.
Got them excited about being part of the choir, and then they, were they going to be like Mom and the extraordinary soloist? Maybe not, but all of a sudden they had confidence they never had and enjoyed singing, and they never thought they could do that. Is that manipulation, or is that just being a cheerleader?
Positive orchestration, encouragement, inspiration. He had the position, the authority. That's all part of it. Yeah.
But I'm just getting back to, because what this brings up for me is just, and it's not just the DSM. Like if you talk to a typical Gen Zer right now, they're going to tell you, they're going to rattle off about 16 labels. I mean, and it depends on where they are on the spectrum too. They might be, I'm they, them, I'm neurodivergent, I'm non-binary, da 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 da. You just have a real sense of, you create a prison of who you are, and you've locked yourself in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I hear. That because I hear a label, I hear living up to the label, like the little boy.
What I try to do with this is everyone has a search for identity. And if we don't give young people biblical understanding of an identity as a male or woman, they're going to go fishing for whatever. And culture and society is certainly not going to help.
TikTok won't help.
No, not at all. And to recognize then, if this is their perceived identity, I'm going to counter it eventually. I'm just not going to counter it to their face immediately. I'll rather even explain my identity within the reality of ADHD or hyperactivity and see it as tremendous joy, blessing, and not live under the negativity, the neo effect, no placebo effect. I'm not going to live under that, but rather take the identity and move it, because it's almost impossible, Karen, in my opinion, for us in our clinical role or even like in the community role to kind of negate, block, or counter someone's identification system when it's just in this general community style, because it is their language, it is their lens, right? Asexual, pansexual, all this stuff. Like 15-year-olds tell me stuff. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what you're doing tomorrow morning for breakfast, how you calling yourself a pansexual, right? Stuff like that.
But that's why I'm mad at the adults in the room, because it's this generation that was told since they were in first grade that you're ADHD. It's not their fault that they've been like, that's the identity that was handed to them. That's why I'm frustrated with our profession for giving a big fat manual. Here's identity. We're going to hand it to you. And for people not to even wake up. I mean, even these depression screenings that come to college campuses. If you're depressed, you know it. You do not need to be screened for this, okay? But who wants to fund that depression screening? I don't know. Eli Lilly, are they behind this depression screening campaign that's going to come to your campus acting like, oh, we're here for you? No, you're not here for me. You just want to sell Prozac.
Well, and as you and I have said many times, everyone should go through a little bit of depression every year, because life is hard. Grieving happens, losses happen, transitions happen.
If you don't, you're a robot.
Yeah, well,
so
maybe that's what we're trying to create.
Well, of course.
Right, so maybe that's part of the whole cycle.
No, they want us stoned on our sofas eating Doritos and watching Netflix, so that we have no idea of what's actually happening, and we
and
never
TikTok
have
at the
the
same
energy
time. So you're split screening.
Right. No, it's divisive. It's very divisive.
It also goes back to another one of the themes you and I talk about all the time. What's the story you're telling yourself?
Exactly.
Right? Even, and Angie calls me on this, it's so cute, when my teacher, my kindergarten teacher, becomes therapist or neurologist, because my sleeping struggles are real. And so if I get woke up like that, like last night, now Elia and I talk for like 15 minutes. So I know I'm up then. But if it's like a 30-second wake up, Twinkie has to go pee or something, my dog. When I come back in, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can get back to sleep. Angel go, what are you telling yourself? You're like,
Mm-hmm.
you're right. You're right. I'm going to start telling myself the exact opposite immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Do my breathing exercises and tell my brain, just calm your central nervous system again and let's get some sleep, right? And just literally making that part of that mantra and part of that process. So even within the sadness or even within the anger, whatever those things, identify, recognize it, move. And I just wanted to frame the whole thing in this placebo and
Yeah.
nocebo effect piece because I think it's important.
Well, let's hand out a bunch of sugar pills to all these people who think that they have ADHD or depression or whatever they think they have, and just be like, "Here, this is going to make you perfectly motivated, perfectly able to structure and handle your life." Because a lot of what I think is happening is that now that the kids have been handed these labels, and now they're adults, and they are functioning within the constraints of the label that was handed to them, which they've now taken on as their identity, and then they enter life, and all of a sudden life is so much harder because they are stepping into it with this sense of that they have a disadvantage. They're debilitated by virtue of this
Yeah.
identity that they've owned. So it's something like, well, I don't know how to get through the day with all these challenges I've had. I've got all this going on. It's like, I don't know, like how people have gotten through the day with juggling a lot of
Yeah.
plates or juggling balls, spinning plates since the dawn of time. But because they've taken on this identity, they see it as much harder for them. And maybe it is, and maybe it's not. Either which way, stuff's got to get done.
Yeah. And then
Like,
the interesting counter to that for all of us working with folks who have this false identity or this negative identity, identity becomes rooted and becomes really a sense of self. And so if we counter their identity so strongly, even if it's truth, it can cause chaotic crisis, identity crisis that isn't always helpful. We want them to reach that on their own, but rather to affirm and accept the elements of their identity that are not delusional. I'm not saying like trans or someone thinks they're a banana or something. I'm talking about more ADHD or OCD or any of those. So with students, like you're right, in my joy of this generation, Karen, that's different than our generation, is at least they're very open and aware. Our generation, we ignored everything, repressed everything. The
I
majority of people.
prefer it that way. I
I don't,
actually,
but I
I
understand your
do.
point.
I mean, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get it done. Like, I'm tired of the victims.
Right. And I understand that we weren't being victims, but we were often denying things that need to be rooted out and worked on. Right. Because it's not like our generation didn't have plenty of people who flamed out and did crazy, stupid things. And
Oh no,
yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So I'm saying it's different frame. All I'm saying is that in the identity work, when you have a 17-year-old confused or even a 27-year-old confused, trouncing their identity rarely. Jesus didn't do that either. Right. He didn't tell the woman at the well, you're a adulterous whore. Right. He called her out about her situation, then said, go and sin no more, because he still treated her in a way that no one else had treated her, and actually talked to a woman who wasn't even happening in rabbis. They didn't talk to women regularly. They didn't teach women regularly. So he's doing all these things, but he didn't say, hey, you're a loser. He just said, here's your life. Here's your truth right here. I'm accepting you and loving you as you are, but go and sin no more. Go change now. And so there's elements within that identity piece, and I'm totally on board with you on 95% of the identifications, but how we work on helping them move off of that to create the new life, the new identity, is sometimes a little bit touchy. And again, they're way more sensitive to this group. Yeah. And so trying to find the strength in that, not just the negativity in that.
Well, I'm coming from a place of, and getting back to dad, this is like, to me, many people have assumed, not their fault, but they have taken on that false identity that was given to them and is disempowering.
Absolutely.
And so I'm coming from it as a take charge of your thoughts. Take charge,
Absolutely.
make it happen. So a lot of, and so what I'm frustrated with, and it's not even generational. I'm just frustrated with our profession for the over medicalization, the over diagnosing everything, diagnostic inflation. Every vicissitude of your emotional state is now a clinical diagnosis. It's a lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell, frankly. I find it to be very
and
much.
I think we're agreeing. We're just looking at it differently. I think you're looking at it as a research and a professor. I'm looking at it as a therapist pastor at the moment.
Right. I'm looking at it as like, it's lies. Lies, 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 lies. That disempower.
And it often is. So is addiction. And rarely does someone get in the face of an alcoholic, just go, you you're a drunk and you're a loser, and then rejecting them and I don't want to be with you anymore. Rarely does that work to get someone towards
Right.
intervention.
Well, that's why I'm not a
Right.
clinician. Let's be honest. I've trained for it. I have been
Yes,
in the past,
absolutely.
but I don't think that I'm wired to be. I'm more wired to be an advocate, to be up
Truth is
there.
still madly important.
Yeah, no,
And
I know
right,
we
as
agree.
a
I just know I come
yeah,
off edgier and harsher than you, which I'm okay with because I don't know. That's just how I am.
yeah,
But hey, okay, to your point, you brought up addicts. This is something I
yeah,
wanted to say earlier and I lost it. What do we think about with the labeling of Alcoholics Anonymous, which we've talked about is probably the most effective, but you have to take on the identity. I am an alcoholic. I always will be. And I kind of wrestle with that because I
yeah.
just think there's no liberation and freedom in that and transformation through a miracle
Yeah, and I
from
can't
God.
speak for every alcoholic by any
Right.
means, nor am I one. I didn't have that issue. I never have. But people like Angie's father, my father-in-law was an alcoholic and the Lord took it away immediately. And Karen, even though he hasn't drank in the 50 years now, whatever, he still considers himself an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Part of that for him is a safety valve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He believes in his freedom for Christ and is so
Mm-hmm.
thankful that was taken away. Right. But to him, that's just a personal recognition of, hey, I had this struggle. The
Mm-hmm.
Lord delivered me. Praise the Lord for that. But I'm not going to pretend now that I have all this freedom after 57 years, I'm just going to start drinking.
Yeah.
So I think it's how we use it, right? How we perceive it. It's getting back to that very first point, the placebo, nocebo. Do we see this
Yeah.
as a curse? And I'm alcoholic, so I can't serve my church. I'm an alcoholic, so I can't. No, Bob's not saying that.
Right.
Right. That's part of his redemption story, part of his movement again. And if we stay even if we're in sobriety from whatever the addiction might be, even including social media or anything else, but if we are focused on that addiction all the time, you're not living in freedom. You
Right.
can't manage sin. You eliminate and eradicate it and remove and turn away from, repent, turn away and run the other way, pursue, Paul says. So it's same coin here, where I think we're in the same area. We're just looking at the different sides and moving through it. Okay. Lord, thank you so much for opportunity to research and process and debate and discuss and share and be moved by your spirit, Lord. Karen and my goal, Tim's goal, is to inspire, encourage, challenge, to help people wrestle with the truth of their identity, Lord, that they are fearfully and wonderfully made by you, and to live in victory and freedom from all identifications that are outside of you, any label, any DSM label, any addiction label, even a mood label, Lord, to say something like, I'm always an angry person or I'm always sad. Sadness and anger is a part of our human condition, Lord, but we are not to be identified by anything outside of your fruit of the Spirit: peace, love, joy, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. None of the things, Lord, that often bind us and hinder us and block us and that we use as excuses and rationalizations not to be fully present, fully loving, fully engaged. So, Father, for any of our listeners wrestling with any aspect of placebo, nocebo, relationships, addictions, may they find their identity, their peace, their joy in you and live an authentic and present and joyful life, even if they're wrestling, suffering, in pain. Use, Lord, the beauty of the mind you've given us, a mind that is made in your image, to live in victory no matter what. We thank you, Lord, for this time together. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Love and Life with Dr. Karen and Pastor Elliott is produced by Tim May and executive producer, Dr. Karen Anderson-Abel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.